Hey guys, Dwayne here. Wanted to talk to you a little bit about kids support systems. In a previous episode, we talked about building your support system. And since this whole site is basically about dealing with this with kids, I think it was really important to talk about how how a support system also pertains to your kids. Now, a lot of the same pillars are going to be very similar. There's a little bit of a difference, a little bit of nuance differences that I'll go over. But basically, it falls into 5 different categories. You have your, similar things: family, friends, friends of family, family friends. So basically, family is their family, friends are their friends at school, and just the people that they know. Family friends are people who are, so basically it kind of falls into your friend category. Therapists for them, and then ultimately you. Now, the family pillar is a little bit different because they're in your situation. You're getting basically information from one side. For the kids, they're in the middle. I mean, they are absolutely right dab in the middle of this. I mean, they're hearing from you. They're hearing from their mom. They're hearing from family members, and it's going to be really confusing for them because they're going to be they're stuck in the middle, right? And if you're trying to in your support system, you're trying to create a infrastructure or a system to help keep you calm and grounded, and it's really the same thing for your kids. You need to give them some normalcy and enable them to, at least when they're with you, to feel like the weight of the divorce and the separation and all this stuff isn't just firmly on their heads. So on that, it's similar thing, right? I mean, you're going to have a lot more control of this compared to what they're going to have. So if there are people that you don't think are good for them to help keep them calm and grounded, then do the same thing you would do with yourself and just limit their interaction with those folks. But I'm not saying don't let them see certain people and stuff like that. Try to keep it as normal as possible, and hopefully, if you set appropriate boundaries, people won't cross a line. And if they're trying to distract your kids or do some stuff with them, it'll be a beneficial scenario. Okay. Now your friends, and it kind of rolls into the same thing. The family and the friends is the same thing. You have to be careful on what input they're giving to them. So you want to give your kids an environment to where they feel comfortable with what's going on, and their anxiety and stress isn't increased. So and it's tough. And part of that, one thing I want to say is if you have your kids with you, just be careful what you're talking about with other people. Don't have conversations where the kids are going to overhear and stuff like that, because they're going to be listening. I mean, they're going to be anxious and stressed, just like you are, but even amplified. So, and they're going to be looking for information. So when you're talking to people, and if they can glean that you're talking about their mom or you're talking about the situation, their little spidey senses are going to go up, and they are going to pay attention and listen to everything. And if it's a one-way either way. I mean, just be really, really careful of that, because they hear and they listen to everything, and you don't want to add into their stress. Now, it's tough if you're trying to deal with your own stuff and you have your kids and you're trying to balance being able to talk to people and stuff like that. So just be really careful of that. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about, and I talked about this for you as well, but I think this is even more important for your kids, is therapy. It's really kind of bizarre how kids perceive the whole divorce thing. They really have a tendency to think it's their fault. I didn't even really understand that. The kids therapist had mentioned that, and I'd have read that before, and it was like, well, how would they think that? There's nothing that's really associated with them, so why would they think that? But they really do. So, I mean, keep that in your mind. I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second. But on the therapist thing, of all the different people, of family, friends, and all that stuff, where people are going to have they're going to have their bias. A therapist really isn't. A therapist is going to be focused on their needs and helping them be able to deal with this, with what they're going through. And it gives your kids an opportunity to talk about things without worrying about hurting somebody's feelings, right? I mean, so if they have something they want to say about you, or they have something they want to say about their mom, they have an environment where they don't feel, worried about it. Now, I was gonna say, like the custody evaluations, and there's different processes where if they do make comments, then there is some weight to it. But in a therapeutic scenario where they're talking to a therapist, really, it's primarily focused on them. Now, depending on how things go, if you do a custody evaluation, stuff like that, the kid's therapist might be interviewed, or they might be asked to answer a questionnaire and stuff like that. So, that's just full disclosure, something you need to possibly think about. But really, your focus is to try to help the kids, and also keep in mind, the therapist is trying to help them deal with the situation, and if they have any issues or perceived issues with one of the parents, to help them deal with that. So I think the important part about that is if there's a scenario where you are being, let's say this, you're being portrayed as a danger to your kids. If you're having an active role with the therapist's office, and not in the sense of tell me everything that's going on. I don't mean that. I mean it's like, hey, what can I do to help my kids better deal with this? What do I need to be concerned about? Be available to have a one-on-one session, not a one-on-one session, but a session with with your kids and the therapist, and be able to be open-minded about it and hear what they have to say. So, therapy for your kids is really important. My kids have, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, have been dealing with a therapist off and on for the last, 3 years, one of the kids, and the other ones. Ultimately, everyone ended up in it because in our particular situation, it turned into a nasty mess, and it's just stayed that way, and it's been just, it's even hard to explain. But the therapist has given them a person that they can talk to that can kind of weed through the BS of what's going on. They can discern whether there is a problem with one parent or another. It may take some time, but ultimately what you're trying to do is you're trying to build a resource for your kids, similarly to what you had for yourself, to help you get through this initial trauma, to be able to learn about yourself, and ultimately be able to get beyond all this and have a good life. And that's what you're trying to do, is you're trying to help your kids build a system or resource system that they can deal with this, that they have the support they need to get through it. And finally, the last part of their support system pillars is you, right? It's you. I mean, you are going to have a major impact on how your kids get through this. If you make the situation more stressful and more anxious and fearful and whatnot, you're going to transfer that over to your kids, and that doesn't, it doesn't do you any good. It doesn't do them any good. And you need to be aware of it. You need to just think about it. It is so easy in the midst of all this to get so caught up in what's going on right now, and get caught up in your stress and your anxiety. And it's even easy to get caught up in your kids doing things that are basically benign, that in the context of the initial part of the divorce, when you're going through the court stuff, of being, they could say something that could be like a trigger for you, right? They'll say something, for instance, I had one point where my son, he made a comment about, I'm trying to remember what it was. It was like something like, we were driving, I was taking him to school. This is like the first couple months in it. And And I asked a question of, what they did the day before, and he's like, well, you're stalking us. And I'm like, what? Whoa, where the hell did that come from? And, and it's kind of triggering because you're like, whoa, wait a minute. Well, what is somebody saying? What's the stories and all that other stuff, You know what? Don't buy into it. It's almost like bait, because if that happens and you respond negatively, it reinforces this illusion of what something's being painted about you, and then it just adds to your kids' stress and anxiety. That the whole thing on this is keeping yourself in a good place, calm and grounded, and keeping your kids in this, similarly in a good space. So just be really careful of it. I know, man, I know it's hard. I know it. I get it. I mean, when you're in the midst of this fight and things have turned and you're dealing with stuff that's being thrown at you, and then, you're worried about what's going to happen with your kids, and it's really tough. But you know what, guys? The thing to remember on this is, and I'll, just a little bit off topic from this with supporting your kids. Everybody knows what's going on, right? The attorneys know what's going on. And what I mean by that, everybody knows that in a divorce, you have a pair of people who one day cared about each other and loved each other. The next day they hate each other and they're trying to destroy each other. It's like 1 week you were living together, and whatever you're now complaining about, you didn't do anything about because you didn't do anything about it. And now, you're in this brutal fight where everyone is just flinging dirt and mud at everybody. Here's the thing. Like I said, everybody knows it. Now, the attorneys, they're hired to help whatever person, okay? So if you tell your attorney that your ex does, 1, 2, 3, 4, these 4 things that they do are really bad, they're going to go, okay, Mr. Client, who's paying me a nice retainer, I believe everything you say. And, this is what you're saying, and this is what we're going to go down the road on. So I mean, the judges realize it, the cops realize it, the custody values realize it. I mean, everybody realizes it. Now, if there's something that's thrown out there, they may have to take a pause to think about it. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, don't allow that to get under your skin. And don't allow that to impact how you interact with your kids. Okay, like I said, you are an important part of their support system. So don't get caught up in the drama that, I mean, I know it's hard when I say that, it's like, well, I'm in the middle of it and it's really bad. Take a step back, okay? Unless you have done something that is, that's 100% true fact and they can prove it. I mean, in other words, if something that you're being accused of, you've absolutely done and you're an axe murderer, okay, well then, you got problems, and, this isn't going to help you, and none of this stuff is going to help you. But if you're just an average, normal dude trying to get through this, just realize that it's all BS, and everybody knows it. Everybody knows it, right? Just calm down, and so think about it. Your best bet is to be as calm and reasonable as possible. If you're calm and reasonable and the other person is saying, "Oh, you're a monster," if you're not sprouting horns and fur and fangs, is anybody going to believe it? Probably not. So think about that. Take a step back. And on that, if you do that, and you're able to calm down, so if these things are being thrown at you and just like, okay, whatever, until they get to a point that something significant is happening, just try to relax on it. And by you relaxing, your kids are going to see that you're not stressed, which will help them to not be stressed. So just think about that for a moment, okay? All right, so, building a support system for yourself is truly important, but it's even more important for your kids, because they are just victims in this with no real say. No matter, what? Here's the thing. So let's say for instance, your ex has a bad problem. they're not a good person or whatever, and you think that your kids, I'm going to say your kids at this point because, it's kind of a ownership thing. Technically, it's both of your kids. Anyways, I digress. What I'm trying to say is, if you're like, oh my gosh, their mom is horrible and they shouldn't be around her and, whatever. Your kids, every kid wants to love both parents, okay? They want to be around both parents. Now, if something has happened that is significant and the court systems and all that stuff determined maybe they shouldn't be around either you or her, okay, fine. Even if that happens, they still want to spend time with you. They still want to be around you. They still care about you or their mother, and eliminating that opportunity for them to have that relationship is counterproductive for them. Okay, so what am I trying to say? My point is just, hey, try to be the calm and reasonable person out of it, and then that will just focus more that the stories are BS. And by doing that, it keeps you a little more relaxed and calm, which in turn is going to keep your kids more relaxed and calm. And in this particular video, that's what we're really talking about. We're talking about a support system for your kids to make them feel as relaxed and calm and grounded and comfortable and all that stuff associated with a really crappy situation. Okay? So, I know for me, when I was going through it, it was, and I've said this before, it was really hard for me to really, some of these concepts I'm talking about, I've learned later on, right? So I've been able to go through a bunch of this pain and anxiety and collateral damage and all this stuff to get to the point where I'm like, okay, now I see what's going on. I understand it. And it doesn't necessarily make it easy. I still have my days where I have my rough days and stuff, and you're going to have those too. But my hope is if you can take a step back and you can say, okay, take a breath and, what's the long-term goal on this? What's the long-term plan? And be able to basically build an environment for your kids that, that helps them get through this. So, just to kind of summarize all this, what I'm talking about, and a lot of it boils back down into what I was saying before, is just make sure all those things, the family that they're dealing with, well, you can only control what you can control. So your family that's dealing with them, make sure that it's a positive, constructive thing. Same thing with family, friends, their friends. That one's a little tougher because you won't necessarily be in the middle of it, but just keep an eye out for it. If they're interacting with people who aren't helping, who are causing them more stress and anxiety, and if you're getting that from them, try to talk to them about it. Hopefully you can get them in to see a therapist so that they have somebody who's professional to deal with this and do some evaluations of things. And then ultimately, like I said, it's you. You're going to set the tone on how they're going to feel through this. If you're feeling calm and you're coming across that everything's okay, then they're going to feel okay. If you don't, like in the one time I think I mentioned in a previous video where I got really frustrated and had a telephone conversation with their mom that was negative while they were with me, that really changed the dynamic. If you can catch yourself and not do that in the first place, you'll be so much better off. Okay, so want to wrap this up. Hopefully you found this gives you something to think about. Again, my goal on this is to basically, I'm putting myself in the mindset that, if I could roll the clock back many years ago and I was watching this video, what could someone have potentially said to me to help me make different decisions to make things better for myself and the kids, get our lives back on track quicker, to deal with the drama of this and the ongoing drama that continues with it. Hopefully in your situation, maybe you're going to be in a situation where it'll just be the initial divorce. You can figure out how to control, get yourself under control, and things will calm down. If that's not the case, and you're in a situation where it's now, you're getting the opinion or the information that it's going to be long term, learning this stuff now and helping your kids out with it and helping you out with it is going to it's going to help you. It's going to help your kids, you know, and whatever. And one little tidbit I want to leave you with, and this is something that someone told me, a therapist and the custody evaluator, actually multiple. I mean, it's I've heard this from multiple different sources, and the comment was, as long as one parent can provide your kids with a good environment, a good stable environment where they feel secure and loved and calm and grounded and all that stuff, if the other situation is a nightmare, and not necessarily a nightmare to like the putting cigarettes out on it, but if it's like an emotional nightmare, one stable household is statistically shown that kids can get through it in a positive way and be okay on the other side. So work to be, you know, hey, if both of you guys can provide that, that's awesome. But at least one of you has to do it. And if it has to be you, all the stuff I'm talking about will help you do it. Okay? So hope this helped. If I'd love to hear your comments on what you've gone through to help your kids. What support systems have you built for them? How have they been able to deal with this, and how have you been able to help them to ensure that there is an environment where they could effectively deal and heal and grow from this experience, or maybe even some of the frustrations you've had. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. If this is helping you out at all, subscribe to the channel. And my goal is to go through and just kind of talk about things, like I said, talk about things that I think would have helped me many years ago, and things that I'm doing now that's helping now. If you can figure that stuff out, it's going to make your life better. It's going to make your kids' life better, and it'll just get you on track to get your life back and make things a lot better. So on that, I will talk to you on the next one, guys. Take care, be kind to yourself, and see you. Bye.